LIVERUR brings you the possibility of setting up your circular rural living lab and contributing to a more sustainable economy. Nevertheless, each community faces its own challenges. In this third video, we are going to see why it is important to establish a clear purpose for your project before preparing its key activities and key resources. The purpose is the project's ultimate goal, hence it should be based on a long-term vision considering the economic and social needs of the rural community where the project will be set up, as well as the local potential of a circular economy approach. This is a very interesting challenge to start with. Living labs are based on a user-centered approach that deeply relies on active user involvement on a real-life context. It creates a very rich environment where multiple stakeholders work together, resorting to innovative techniques to solve common problems. It is expected that pilot projects can achieve such objectives, or at least create the basic conditions for it to happen in the future. In order for that to happen, you need to envision what your ultimate goal really is. It should be related to challenges that your community needs to solve or to local resources that can create competitive advantages. Your first step is to know where you are right now. That is your starting point. That is why the RAIN model makes you access a real-life setting. Then you should be stating explicitly what you want to achieve, or in other words, what is your finishing line. This will make your position much more understandable, which will also serve as a motivation for those involved. You can then start to choose the tools to structure your project. When you have a clear idea of what you want to achieve, you can establish a real roadmap and finally make it happen. Like any other project, a living lab may have different stages of its life cycle. In LIVERUR, 3 specific stages are considered, namely setup, sustain, and scale. For the sake of clarity in aiming to help setting up pilot projects, we will be focusing on the setup stage. When thinking about the goals of your project, there are critical questions that you should be answering. In the toolbox, you will be presented specific questions for each stage, many of which can be directly transformed in critical tasks that will help guide your work. When answering the critical questions and looking to the future, there are some lines of thought that will help you in defining the purpose of your project. First, you should take into account the broader picture, rather than thinking in terms of a specific business idea only. For example, you should be considering the potential effects of the project on your community, rather than focusing solely on achieving a certain sales revenue for a certain product. For living labs, the multiplier effect is much more important than an isolated success. You should also be developing a long-term vision, like 20 years, not only for the project you are leading, but also for the surrounding community. This vision will guide you along the path. It will help you understand that there are many steps to be taken, and it will show you that some efforts take time to reach their full potential. Making benefits visible is also vital for your success. Whatever you are doing, there is the need to show your stakeholders that it is producing consequent effects. It can be improved convenience, availability of goods, resource efficiency, or any other benefit. When people see results, they tend to increase their commitment. Checking if someone else is already developing a similar project, either on your community or in any other place, can prove to be a valuable task. You can learn from what others are doing, or it can give you the opportunity to establish strong partnerships that will leverage your work. However, do not forget the cultural particularities of your community and of your stakeholders. Your working processes should be adjusted to a real-life setting, so others can join you and increase the range of collaborative and co-creation initiatives. Finally, LIVERUR's call to action urges you to adopt the circular economy as a new development paradigm. Thus, you have the opportunity of envisioning ways to contribute to a more sustainable economy with increased resource efficiency and a better environmental performance. To help you defining the purpose of your project, the toolbox comprises 5 tools. Some of these tools are commonly used in strategic planning, while others are used for contextual analysis. Mind mapping is very useful to organize your ideas and to create a visual representation of their interlinkages. The problem solution fit canvas requires a little more work, but takes you on a step-by-step path in order to find the best possible solution for a specific problem. SWOT analysis is one of the most popular tools in strategic planning. It can serve for very simple internal and external analysis, but it can also be used in more complex strategic design processes. Theory of change is becoming very popular. Since it is very action-oriented, it is based on long-term goals and it relies on visible evidence. Finally, the Living Lab worksheet is the adaptation of a tool used to plan business accelerators. It is a great tool to establish a complete overview of your Living Lab's activities and management. The toolbox provides you an explanation of each of these tools, as well as simple step-by-step guides on how to use them. If you explore it, you will certainly find useful resources for your work. We will now be looking to the Azores Pilot Living Lab and see one of these tools in action. We have seen in the first video that this pilot project will be focusing on the milk supply chain. This is one of the most important economic sectors in the region, but it traditionally faces several challenges to become competitive in external markets. The Pilot Living Lab will have to be able to address these issues. Therefore, in order to define the purpose of the project, it was important to carry out a thorough analysis of the internal and of the external contexts. The SWOT analysis was selected as the appropriate tool for this task, since it will easily provide an overview of the situation. Looking to the internal environment of the Azores milk supply chain, there are some strengths that stand out. There have been recent investments in the factory's modernization. Productivity has been increasing steadily, and the milk has very high quality. But there are also some relevant weaknesses that may hinder the sector, including the small scale of local milk producers, the lack of diversification and differentiation, and the troubles in reaching external markets. When looking to the external context, the Azores milk supply chain has interesting opportunities to explore. The emerging health and well-being trends, the European Union incentives to innovation, and the innovative biological production methods. However, there is the need to understand the threats that can bring along challenging problems. For instance, the aggressive competitiveness in international markets, the changes in the consumer behavior and the lashback at milk consumption, and the increasing costs in logistics, namely sea and air transport, which are vital for island economies like the Azores. This very simple and superficial analysis has highlighted relevant features that can leverage or hinder the Azores milk supply chain's performance. Looking to its results, we see that although the quality of the milk is good, the sector has been struggling with innovation and with the competitiveness in international markets. Therefore, it makes sense that the Azores Pilot Living Lab's purpose should be focused on fostering innovation in the milk supply chain to increase its added value and differentiation. The formal statement is to create the conditions to establish a rural entrepreneurial ecosystem in the Azores, striving for the sustainability of the milk supply chain and for the milk's quality. To help achieving this purpose, we can combine different cells of the SWOT analysis and start developing specific strategies to improve the Azores milk supply chain's competitiveness. For instance, due to LIVERUR's objectives and to Tarinov's involvement, it seems interesting to adopt a turnaround strategy, seizing opportunities to overcome weaknesses. We can use the incentives to innovation that exist in the European Union to improve the diversification and differentiation of the Azores milk products. We can also combine strengths and threats to adopt diversification strategies. In this case, we can structure a new marketing approach based on the milk's high quality in order to increase its competitiveness in international markets. Following this rationale, many other approaches can be considered. The Azores Pilot Living Lab now has a purpose that fits its context and answers to its real-life setting. In the next videos, we will be using other tools to structure the Living Lab's activity.